Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Forum Daily West. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Former Alberta Premier and NDP leader Rachel Notley announced that she'll be stepping down as MLA on December the 30th. Things got a little heated during question period as Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre accused Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of infighting within the Liberal caucus. And the Canada-wide postal strike continues to impact many, including the life-saving organization Stars Air Ambulance. Thanks so much for joining us. Former Alberta NDP leader Rachel Notley is resigning as an MLA. Notley says she's stepping down from her position as an MLA for Edmonton Strathcona as of December the 30th. The former Alberta Premier made the announcement on social media, adding the decision comes with mixed feelings. The vacant seat at the Alberta Legislature potentially opens the door for current Alberta NDP leader Naheed Nenshi, who told Bridge City News in the past he would seek a seat in either Edmonton or Calgary. Nenshi, who currently does not have a seat, splits his time between the two cities. Premier Danielle Smith announced new measures aimed at improving security along Alberta's border with the United States. Smith says the action being taken by the province will crack down on illegal immigrants drug trafficking across the border.
We're investing $29 million to create a new unit, the Interdiction Patrol Team, or IPT, under the command of the Alberta Sheriffs. This unit will be supported by over 50 specially trained sheriffs. 4 drug patrol dogs, critical to ensure reasonable suspicion to search vehicles. 10 cold weather surveillance drones that can operate in high winds with dedicated pilots. And 4 narcotics analyzers to test for illicit drugs. The IPT will be made up of 7 teams of sheriffs. We will also create a 2-kilometer deep border zone, which is a red zone deemed critical infrastructure to enable the sheriffs to arrest individuals found attempting to cross the border illegally or attempting to traffic illegal drugs or weapons without needing a warrant.
Now, when asked if she would implement retaliatory tariffs on exported oil and gas to the United States in response to the 25% tariff threat by Donald Trump, Premier Smith simply said no. Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre called out Prime Minister Justin Trudeau about a recent report which states there is infighting within the Liberal caucus when it comes to the fall fiscal update.
The Globe and Mail reported that there's a big fiscal feud that is broken out between the Prime Minister and his Finance Minister. At stake is that she wanted to run a gigantic $40 billion deficit, but that was her guardrail. And now this Prime Minister is pushing her through that guardrail and pushing all Canadians off the fiscal cliff. Why?
The Conservative leader likes to make up little dramas to try and distract Canadians from the fact that he voted against a tax break for all Canadians. He's trying to hide from the fact that he continues to muzzle his own MPs so they cannot be their community's voices in Ottawa, instead being his voice in forcing them to face billions of dollars in cuts to housing programs. He continues to refuse to get his security clearance because he doesn't want to keep his own MPs safe from foreign interference. That's why he's trying to distract Canadians from what's going on.
A federal finance minister and Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland says premiers have pitched products that could be included in counter tariffs against the United States.
The Prime Minister was clear in Halifax on Monday that Canada, of course, would respond to unjustified tariffs. That is what we did in 2018, and our response worked. Of course, in our discussion today with the premiers of the provinces and territories, we discussed the Canada-US relationship, we discussed the border, we also discussed the economic relationship, and a number of premiers offered strong support for a robust Canadian response. That included some of the premiers proactively naming critical minerals and metals that their provinces produce and which are exported to the United States.
Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc, who is standing behind Freeland, also says more information on Canada's plan to beef up the border will be revealed fairly soon. Ontario Premier Doug Ford spoke following his virtual meeting with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the other premiers. Ford says when it comes to the border, that really is federal jurisdiction. He also says when Trump takes office next month, Canada has to be prepared for a tariff fight with the United States.
I just want to emphasize the border is the Canadian federal government's responsibility. We will always be there to support. Our OPP are at the ready for any surge capacity if we see coming across our border, and I know the other regions across the country as well.
The Israeli government says it is preparing for its largest ever military operation following the fall of the Assad regime in Syria. According to TBN Israel's Yair Pinto, the Israel Defense Forces have destroyed hundreds of targets, including military bases, chemical weapons facilities, and missile sites.
Dozens of military aircrafts, helicopters, ballistic missile storage facilities, chemical weapons production plants, and other strategic targets have been destroyed by Israel's Air Force in the last 48 hours. This is one of the largest operations in the history of the Israeli Air Force, and it's not over yet. The goal of the operation is to destroy the strategic military assets that Bashar al-Assad's army recently abandoned in Syria so that they do not fall into the hands of the jihadist rebel factions that took over the country and are already threatening to march on Jerusalem. In addition, the IDF is also striking known smuggling routes that Iran has used to send weapons and ammunition to Hezbollah, as well as other Iranian assets in Syria.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu released a video message addressed to the Iranian people who were celebrating the weakening of the Iranian regime's axis of terror. Netanyahu says Israeli attacks on Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon had set off a chain reaction in the Middle East.
People of Iran, as we see history unfold before our very eyes, I can only imagine what you're feeling right now. Your oppressors spent over $30 billion supporting Assad in Syria. Today, after only 11 days of fighting, his regime collapsed into the dust. Your oppressors spent billions supporting Hamas in Gaza. Today, their regime lies in ruins. Your oppressors spent over $20 billion supporting Hezbollah in Lebanon. In a matter of weeks, most of Hezbollah's leaders, its rockets, and thousands of its terrorists went up in smoke.
While many Syrians have been celebrating the collapse of the Assad regime, many Christians in the country are concerned for their safety. They fear that jihadist forces may begin imposing Islamic law. Now, as we hear in this next report by Peter Wooding from the Global News Alliance, the Christian ministry Help the Persecuted says it will stand with Christians in Syria who are being subjected to intense persecution.
With the sudden takeover of Syria by Islamist rebels driving out Syrian President Bashar Assad and his regime, there is renewed hope for the end of the brutal civil war. But Christians are now in an increasingly uncertain and perilous situation. Before this offensive began, Syria was home to an estimated 300,000 Christians. But the takeover by jihadist forces has the Christian community concerned that they're being taken back to the time when Jabhat al-Nusra desecrated Christian churches and imposed Islamic Sharia law. While some fled the conflict, the majority of Christians had no resources to leave and are facing a major lack of access to essentials, including food, water, and electricity. In the midst of this crisis, Christian ministry Help the Persecuted remains committed to stand with the persecuted Christians there, as one of their on-the-ground field ministers, Daniel, explains.
It's okay for me. I am not afraid because I know that God is with me, protect me, and if I died also for God, it's very okay for me. I am brave with that, and I will go back and I will try to work there. So pray for me that I can work normally, I can see the people normally and help them.
Daniel, who had to temporarily leave Aleppo, is urging prayer and support so that he can return as soon as possible to continue ministering to persecuted believers, even if it means risking his life.
A wildfire that tore through Jasper National Park, destroying a third of the town, is Environment and Climate Change Canada's most impactful weather story of this year. The Weather Agency released its annual top 10 list of the country's most impactful weather stories, ranked by severity, human, and economic impact.
Warming faster than the global average, particularly in the north, Canada is increasingly becoming a land where weather extremes are the new norm. A warming atmosphere is increasing the intensity of events like heat waves. It is also intensifying heavy rainfall. because warmer air can hold more moisture. Cape Bretoners are no strangers to winter storms, but the historic snowfall in early February was unprecedented. In downtown Sydney, over 100 centimeters of snow fell. The storm also blanketed much of central and eastern Nova Scotia, along with eastern Prince Edward Island. Southern Ontario faced a summer of sporadic and heavy rainfall in 2024. These storms highlighted how uneven these rain events can be and the sheer volume that can fall in a short amount of time. As flames encroached on Jasper, firefighters battled relentlessly, donning specialized breathing gear as they worked tirelessly to protect infrastructure and extinguish new blazes. The wildfire caused $880 million in insured losses, making it Canada's second costliest wildfire disaster after the 2016 Fort McMurray fire.
Lethbridge police attended a collision on 32nd Street South near Princess Auto Thursday afternoon, where a pedestrian was reportedly struck by a vehicle. Now, Viz from our own video journalist Landon Hickok shows a white Subaru at the scene with its front end damaged, including the hood. It's unclear on the condition of the pedestrian or the driver of the vehicle. Lethbridge police are asking all motorists to avoid the area while they continue to investigate the incident. RCMP in Eastern Alberta are warning about a text message scam involving phony speeding tickets. Mounties and Vermilion say they received a number of reports from people receiving texts saying their vehicle was caught speeding, along with a link to a website to pay the fine. They say the scam is circulating throughout the province. Police are telling people not to click on the link or make any payments to the bogus website. The not-for-profit emergency care organization Stars Air Ambulance has been feeling the long-term effects of the Canada Post workers' strike. According to Stars, 65% of their donations come through the mail. With the strike stretching past 4 weeks now, the group is calling for donations to come through alternate methods.
Like many charity organizations across the country, Stars is also being impacted by the Canada Post strike. And, at Stars, we do rely on majority of donations coming through each and every year, more than half of our funding. So in order to operate, and it costs approximately $11.4 million to operate a base across Western Canada, and we operate 6. So we are very much reliant on the donations during this time of year. It is usually the highest volume time of year, giving season, and we are definitely feeling the impact this year. We're grateful for the method of Built by the Community for the Community that we have in place, and really looking at all areas of funding to help us continue to carry out our mission 24/7.
Stars Air Ambulance flies an average of 11 missions a day throughout Western Canada. Johnston says donations can be made on the Stars website, in person at any of their 6 bases, or over the phone at 1-855-516-4848. You can also donate at stars.ca. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers filed a complaint with the Canada Industrial Relations Board on November 29th. This after hundreds of striking postal workers received temporary layoff notices while on strike. The union said in a statement issued Wednesday night that a mediated settlement has been reached that requires Canada Post to notify affected employees that they're not on a temporary layoff. Canada Post, however, says that under the terms of the resolution, it reserves the right to make staffing adjustments in the future if required. Government officials say Ottawa has sold its stake in Air Canada. The news was first reported by the Globe and Mail. Back in 2021, during the pandemic, the federal government purchased a 6% stake in the airline for $500 million as part of a bailout package. The rescue deal at the time also included a $5.9 billion loan to help support the airline. As of late Thursday, Air Canada shares closed at $25.28 on the TSX. That's up 23 cents. Transport Minister Anita Nance says she was examining the particular legal relationship with the airline in an effort to figure out how to dissuade Air Canada from bringing in more carry-on fees. Stats Canada says the household debt to disposable income ratio was down in the third quarter. The agency says the amount Canadian households owe relative to their income fell as a rise in disposable income outpaced the growth in the debt. This means there was $1.73 in credit market debt for every dollar of household disposable income. It's the 6th straight quarter of declines. A former TD Bank Group employee is facing money laundering charges after being arrested in the United States. The U.S. Justice Department says the 24-year-old man helped a money laundering network by issuing dozens of debit cards for shell companies in exchange for bribes while working at a TD Bank in Doral, Florida. TD says it identified the activity, reported it, and then cooperated with authorities in their investigation. The arrest comes amid an ongoing investigation into money laundering at TD Bank that led to more than $3 billion US in fines being laid against it. Now, here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was down 246 points on the day to finish at 25,410. The Dow was down 234 points to 43,914. The S&P 500 was down 32 on the day to 6051, and the Nasdaq was down 132 points to finish at 19,902. West Texas Intermediate oil was down 27 cents to 70.02 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 16 cents to 3.51 US. Gold was down 45.53 to 26.8287 US an ounce, and silver was down $1.38 to 31.08 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.44 per bushel. Barley is at $6.67. Canola is at $14.13. And corn is at $7.87 per bushel. Live cattle were down 13 cents to $192.13.
That's your Forum Daily West report. I'm Hal Roberts. Thanks so much for watching.